to remind me. Welcome everyone. We're going to get started in a couple more minutes. Welcome everyone to Build End-to-End IoT Solutions. Today we're going to focus on messaging processing, analytics, and business integration. If that sounds like a lot, it actually is. So we're going to have a lot of fun with this one. My name is Pamela Cortez. I am on the Azure IoT team, focusing on developer communities, training, coming up with technical content, and running, IoT show as a host. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. And feel free to ask questions along the way. We have that live Q&A for people who are joining in now. We have some amazing people who will be helping to answer out questions while I'm giving the presentation. So a big shout out for those folks, Bill and Matt and Paul DiCarlo. All right, so this is a workshop series. We've gone through a couple of these already. The first one was Transform Your Business with IoT. Really was just going over all of our different products and services, giving some use case scenarios. So if you're really interested in when would you choose to work with Azure IoT Central versus our past services as well, maybe using IoT Hub, device provisioning service, definitely check out that workshop series, part 1, because that will give you the overview of really all of our services. The next one was the device and device communication. We really deep dive into IoT Hub. If you're not familiar with IoT Hub, that is our cloud gateway, where it's all about that bi-directional communication from the device to the cloud and cloud back to the device. So if you're really wanting to get started with connecting devices, check out that one. And then the device provisioning at scale, we really deep dived into device provisioning service. And how to get started and how can you register and configure and provision a bunch of devices at scale and very all about security. And then the one we're going to do today, messaging, processing, analytics, and business integration. This one, we're going to deep dive into time series insights, Azure Stream Analytics, what is that event grid integration, Power BI. So we're going to cover a lot of different things and kind of have a deep dive on time series insights as kind of one of our main focuses. And then next week, or the final part of this workshop series, is working with IoT Edge. So if you want to bring intelligence from the cloud to your edge device, that one is a really good one for you to check out, because we're going to be going over how to run Azure Stream Analytics on the edge, how to run AI models on the edge, and what is the benefits of actually using IoT Edge. And so we'll talk about deploying modules and all of that good stuff. All right, so the agenda for today, we are going to go over time series insights. We're going to then deep dive into Azure Stream Analytics, message routing. We'll go over event grid integration, and then I'll talk about developer resources and how you can get started with hands-on labs and the reference architecture diagrams and just overview of how you can get started. And just a shout out to that message routing and event grid integration. We did cover that a little bit in the IoT Hub part 2. All right, so looking at our overall portfolio, what are we actually going to be focusing for this part of the workshop series? So we always cover IoT Hub because that is our big main service for Azure IoT when it comes to you building your own IoT solution. And then we're going to talk about time series insights, Power BI, and Azure Stream Analytics. And so this is kind of how it fits into our portfolio with our different services. But you can see that there's a lot of different services that is required when you build IoT solutions. So we're only touching on a few today, and I'll do some comparison on when you might want to think about using time series insights versus going a different direction. So I will talk about that today when we get to those different sections. Just to give you a really high level overview of an IoT architecture. We covered this in depth in part 1, but this is really core subsystems of every IoT solutions. We have our things, insights, and actions. So we talked about, connecting IoT devices to our cloud gateway, which is IoT Hub, and then how it's important to store that data somewhere, talked about code and hot path storage, stream processing rules over data, and then how that can go into business integration. So today we're going to really zoom into the stream processing part, storage, and business integration. So this is where it fits into that architecture. All right, let's get started with time series insights. So I think all of us are aware that there is so much devices out there collecting a lot of data. And when we think about that, all of this amount of data that's being produced is an incredible amounts. And so we really want to think about IoT data and what that means. It's coming from all these devices, but it's coming from all different types of devices, all different types of data. It's coming in. So when we think of IoT data, there's really 4 main challenges with IoT data when we think of building these solutions. One, as I mentioned before, there's tons of devices. They're pumping out tons of different types of data. It really lacks structural consistency between the different devices. You might have one device that's pumping out, large amounts of data. You might have another device that has small amount of data that is producing, but it's a different type of data than the other device, and none of it really, is the same standard. Another issue that we run into is that we need some rhyme and reason for all of this data and how it works together. How does this one device over in this building work with this other device that maybe is a fire alarm in another building? So what is that relationship between all of these devices? We need to understand what is even going on with this data. Also, with all of these devices producing data, it requires a crazy amount of storage. And so, with a lot of these IoT solutions, we need to think about storage and seeing where we should put this storage and understanding how much storage requirements is needed in a particular IoT solution. And we'll kind of deep dive in each one of these shortly, but and then also limited connections. Okay, so let's look into them a little bit more. So I kind of just said exactly this slide, but really a lot of the data is coming from different sensors and assets that don't have the same messaging structure or data structure. And it makes it really hard for us to understand and compare the data together. And so that could be a big challenge, especially if you have tons of different types of devices and different types of solutions. The next one is we need to be able to analyze that sensor and asset data accurately. So you really need to understand the context of where that data came from, the relationship to other sensors, and then access to historical performance in one place. So this is definitely a big chunk of a big challenge when it comes to IoT data. And then again, when it comes to all of this crazy amount of data, we need to think about, how do we access billions of IoT events created over decades of capturing data? It needs to be easy and immediate to be able to see that data. And then also, what happens when you quickly need to see the data with limited latency? So there's a lot of things to think about when it comes to storage. And then that last one, limited connections. IoT data needs to be analyzed and consumed next to other business data to actually show the true business impact of IoT initiatives. And this is all about understanding, getting insights from that data so you can actually do some actions that feed into your actual business needs. So you can see, again, we have all of this data. So some things we need to think about, purpose-built. We need to make sure we understand what's the data. It needs to be accessible in different storage, and it needs to be insightful. We need to be able to do something with that data because there's no point in getting tons of data and not actually doing something with it. So that's where time series insights comes along. So time series insights, you're able to ingest, process, store a lot of data that is time series data. And it's also, you're able to scale with this data as well. You can easily connect to a bunch of different data solutions using time series insights flexible data platform, and we'll go into the architecture shortly, but this is really important because if you're going to adopt Azure Time Series Insights, you're going to also want to make sure that it fits nicely into your other business integration for other teams who might not be using Time Series Insights. Time series insights also uses a rich analytics, APIs, and UX for ad hoc exploration and operational intelligence. And I will actually pop up time series insights and we'll dig into that UX experience. And then also the use of the JavaScript control library for building custom analytics apps on the time series insights platform. Other shout out that I would give to time series insights is that it is really quick to get started with. So if you have IoT Hub already, devices already connected to IoT Hub and data is already coming in, really all you need to do with time series insights is create a time series insights and connect it to your IoT Hub, and then instantly you'll be able to start seeing that data coming from your devices. So it's a really quick way to get started without having to, build a full dashboard right away, and also build your own unique, UX experience. And also it's the automated scaling. So if you're definitely starting off in pilot stage, you might be testing with some devices, but what happens when you scale up? So that's a great thing about Azure Time Series Insights. You can easily scale up and makes things a lot easier to not have to reinvent the wheel because you've brought in a bunch of new devices into your IoT solutions. So really at the core and the heart of this, you're turning that data into decisions with actionable real-time IoT insights. And again, I think what's really important is that real-time aspect of IoT insights. All right, so let's go ahead and dig into what time series insights is really good at. One is collecting that time series data coming from different sources, formats, and different rates, being able to process, normalize, enrich, transform, store the data. This is time series data that can be stored, which is nice, and then being able to analyze it. So it's really built for IoT. So it's really able to take all of that unstructured data and actually make sense of it right away. So this is just a different view of this, but you can see up here, you can not only have IoT Hub as one of your ingestion points, but you can also have Event Hub too. So you can see that it can collect that data from those different sources, and then be able, it goes through the data processing engine, time series model. This, you can have it go through warm storage. So there's a 30-day data retention. Warm storage is all about that fresh data for interactive querying. So anytime that you want this fresh data, think of warm storage as the way to go. But there's also, you're able to do cold storage as well. And this is really great for historical data. So, especially if you're looking at decades worth of information, it's really important to be able to have a cheaper option and be able to have a form of cold storage. In time series insights, you're able to do that. And then you're also able to analyze this data as well. So let's say you need AI, ML solutions to build machine learning models. You can store that in time series insights for scoring. So there's a lot of options you can do here, and it's very flexible. And then you can actually have that query API, so you can have a nice dashboard, see all of that data, or you could also have a third-party IoT app that you show that data in as well. One of the benefits of time series insights is that you can actually pump this data into Power BI as well. So if the rest of your business is using Power BI and your team of maybe data scientists or developers, they just want to have a nice dashboard that they can view for IoT, that's great. But if the rest of your business is also using Power BI, you're able to give them a view of Power BI as well. What's nice about time series insights is that you can build these custom contextualized models based on relationships, hierarchies, asset types, and variables. And this is really beneficial to be able to kind of organize your data and understand, the relationships between different devices. And then you're actually able to upload current models to get started quickly. So that's all about being able to drive better insights. The next one is being able to get access to your data when you need it. And this is really important, especially with warm and cold analytics, support that builds on top of your existing preview. You're able to provide retention-based data routing between warm and cold storage. You can now perform interactive interactions or analytics over warm data as well to gain even more operational intelligence over decades of historical data stored in customer-owned maybe data lake. Azure Data Lake. So this is really nice that you have those different options again. I know I've said it a couple times, how important it is to be able to have warm storage option and a cold storage option as well. And then that last bulleted point is really connect to across different analytics scenarios, such as predictive maintenance, machine learning, using the technologies you probably already using, like Spark, Databricks, Jupyter. You can even use Azure Stream Analytics. So it's nice that you can use these technologies your team might already be using with time series insights. So going back to kind of the last word in time series insights, it's actually the insights part to make these business decisions. And a big part of time series insights is the fact that you can visualize the data for quick anomaly detection. And this is really, really nice, especially if you're in a scenario where you need to figure out what's going on and you need to get alerts or be able to see some anomaly detection on certain devices. You're actually able to visualize that. And this time series insights is the way it's structured and the way that the dashboard is laid out really makes it easy to quickly view anomaly detections. You're also able to run concurrent queries to scale your IoT insights as well, reconstruct missing data for complete analysts, and then you're able to stay connected to the reality with near-time data. Especially if you have folks who are viewing this dashboard every day, being able to actually see that data close to real time is really important. And I'll show a scenario why that is soon. And then you're actually able to see that data through that Power BI connector as well, which is definitely really beneficial, especially if your company is already using that. All right, so I'm going to kind of deep dive into a couple different scenarios where time series insights shine. So this scenario, imagine you have a fleet of trucks delivering goods all over the world. But unfortunately, your trucks are in Canada, are requiring more maintenance recently, which hurts your profitability. You're tasked on figuring out why and proposing a solution. So this is where time series insight shines. Anomaly detection is one of the most common use cases for time series insights. And so what's nice about this is that you can understand why the equipment requires that extra maintenance. You can search why the inventory was damaged. You could do some researching on why production declined on an assembly line. You can chase down a defect and a supply chain process, all because you have all of these different types of devices connected through IoT Hub to time series insights and through a nice dashboard where you can start seeing, long-term predictors. You could do some remote monitoring, but also view some predictive maintenance scenarios as well. Next, improving those operations. So this one I'm going to deep dive a little bit more into. So you can monitor that equipment performance at scale. You can identify process inefficiencies. You can diagnose the health of the equipment. You can optimize the supply chain and production. And so these are definitely all different examples for this particular scenario. But one thing I want to highlight is that with time series insights, there's a couple different ways that it interacts with other products and services. So you have the devices, they're connected through IoT Hub. You can have IoT Hub connect directly to time series insights and start seeing that data right away. You can start doing advanced analytics based on that data, which is really beneficial, especially if you are doing some predictive maintenance. But you can also go through IoT Hub and send up to Azure Stream Analytics. And that's really great, especially if you need to do stream processing of that data first, and then go back. And would say a great example of this would be anomaly detection. You can use Azure Stream Analytics anomaly detection feature and have that show up as one of the data that's presented in time series insights dashboard, which is really nice to be able to have that extra layer of stream processing, especially with anomaly detection. And if you're already using Azure Stream Analytics, you can go ahead and do that. And I'll give some hints when we start building this time series insights environment, some hints on if you're using Azure Stream Analytics already and you want to test out time series insights, some things to consider. So here's an example of a really popular scenario where you might have all of these different devices. They could be either edge devices or regular IoT devices connected to IoT Hub, Azure Stream Analytics, which is connected, storing in Cosmos DB, and then you have mobile app user access. Or you can go through Azure's IoT Hub to time series insights to view. So just to kind of wrap it all up with Azure Time Series Insights, before we go ahead and actually check it out, the capabilities, one, you have that multi-layer storage with warm, cool analytics support. You have the ability to route that data to warm storage for interactive analytics for short time spans. Cold storage is all about seeing that historical data over decades, and then it's flexible. So what's nice about time series insights, you can already use your advanced data solutions that maybe your team's already using, so Spark, Databricks, Jupyter for predictive maintenance, and then you're also able to bulk and import all of that data into time series insights data lake store and get it ready for analytics. So if you are kind of thinking about time series insights and wondering, does this really make sense to start this? Am I able to get all of my past data into it? Yes, you are, which is really nice, not to have to start fresh and worry about, what about all of that past data that you can drive insights from. And then we have a bunch of APIs and user experience to support, integrated functions, scatter plots, time shifting of time series signals for in-depth, being able to in-depth dig into the data. And then it's enterprise grade. And with any of our products in Azure IoT. It's all about enterprise grade and the performance of all layers to the solution to support industrial IoT needs. I would definitely say Azure Time Series Insights is really powerful industrial IoT solutions. So consider that, especially if you're, in manufacturing, of looking into time series insights. And one of the reasons why it's pretty powerful for, manufacturing is because a lot of scenarios or a lot of industries, especially in manufacturing, might not have full teams where, they can be able to create these big dashboards, have big teams to be able to focus on ingestion and storage and how that all maps together. So being able to use time series insights and get started quickly helps folks go from pilot stage to production stage without having an extremely large team to create all of this for you. And then I think I probably mentioned a bunch of times right now, there is a Power BI connector. And so, I mentioned that we have a lot of products and services, especially in the area of analytics. And so you're probably wondering, okay, so you mentioned time series insights, but in that high level architectural diagram that you showed, and through the Microsoft IoT portfolio or the Azure portfolio, there's a lot of different options you can take. So when does it make sense to use Azure Time Series Insights or these other areas or other products and services? And while I'm deep diving into this, keep in mind that your solution might use multiple ones of these. And so we definitely see that all the time, but just kind of giving you a deep dive between these different analytics services. So if your scenario needs are general purpose, flexible data platform for analytics, let's go through this kind of line. So Azure Data Explorer. What's great about Azure Data Explorer, you have full control of these data sources, data schema, and data management. You have powerful analytic capabilities of KQLs over time series and telemetry data, and you can also reserve resources cost model. So those are kind of the benefits of going for Azure Data Explorer. Synapse Analytics. The benefit there is enterprise data warehousing, big data analytics, Luminous analytics service, and a serverless on-demand or provision configuration. And then Cosmos DB, there's multi-model, no SQL database with access and query against open source DB, APIs and models. There's real-time operational analytics. There's high scalability and global dispersion. And then Power BI really is a fully managed business analytics service. A lot of people use it for interactive visualization. It's not just used for IoT data, it can be used for many different types of data, and also it's self-service analytics at enterprise. So if you're looking for a fit for purpose end-to-end IoT analytics solution, this is where you're going to want to consider time series insights. Because what I mentioned above, they're great, but if you're working on IoT solutions, you might want to consider time series insights because it's actually optimized for IoT. I mean, you can quickly connect to IoT Hub and get started with, a click of a couple buttons, which is super powerful. You can, keep scaling, pay as you go, serverless platform. It's a rich semantic modeling for contextualizing time series data. That's the heart of time series insights. And then industrial IoT grade asset-based analytics APIs, user experience for discovery, trending, and anomaly detection and operational intelligence. And kind of to point on that last bulleted point, with time series insights, one of the biggest reasons why we created time series insights was because IoT manufacturing is huge, industrial IoT is huge, and we kept hearing over and over again, we really need an easier way to view this data, understand the relationship of the data between different devices. We need time series data. We also need to be able to have different storage options, and it needs to be easy. And so that is one of the reasons why we created time series insights. So let's go ahead, and before I jump into Azure Stream Analytics, let's go ahead and look at time series insights. So when you go to this view, you can see that we have we have a wind farm. So this example is a great example for you to get started on. It's from our ACOM site, but I want to dig into this and then show you how to build your own time series insights environment, just based on an IoT device sending telemetry. So for this one, this is a wind farm. We have a couple different wind turbines. Part of this solution, we have 2 different plants, and you can see you can kind of dig down into this where, you know, we have this first plant, and in this plant we have, you know, this wind turbine. You can see the different systems that we have here, the different sensors within those systems. And so let's go ahead and look into in the past and look at some of this data. So what's nice with time series insights, you can easily go back into time. So let's pick a date where let's see. I think I'm going to go ahead and look at, let's go back in the past. So you can scroll, or you can just go ahead and put that information here, but I'm just going to go ahead and scroll. So I'm going to go here, and maybe I'm going to go to January from 2017, and maybe I want to go to March 10th and just see what's going on there. So I can go ahead and save. And so this is going to take us, you can see we're in a different part of our timeline. We're pretty far back, and you see that there's nothing on the screen right now, and that's because we haven't selected anything to view. So let's go ahead and look at our generator system. I think I'm going to go ahead and choose the view of our generator speed. I'm going to show this value. You can see there is a lot going on at this moment. So you could see the speed for this particular value, or the values for this particular generator. And then I am going to go ahead and look at maybe pitch system, because I want to compare this to other data. So this looks like everything's looking good here. I'm going to add some more states. I can see that the different values of the oil pressure, which is nice to see. And there has been no alerts so far in the active warning, which is really nice to see that. But I'm kind of wondering if there is other things that we can compare this to. So let me look into our fire systems. So I think I already have that up, which is nice. So I'm not seeing anything there that would be of concern. So this time looks actually pretty nice. We didn't have any alerts. All of our systems, you know, they're looking pretty good. But let's pick another time to see if there's any other alerts that we can compare this to. So I'm going to go ahead, looking back in our reports. Apparently we had March 3rd, actually March 9th. We actually had a different state here, and we want to investigate that more on what's actually going on. So we can see, let's go ahead and show this state. It's looking good. Everything's looking good right now. Let me look back in the past reports to see if there was a time where this was not looking good. So I want to make sure I have the right dates. This looks good. This looks good. There we go. I see that based on a state that we actually had the fire alert come off, and we're trying to understand why it came off. And so let's go ahead and look more into that, because it actually stated a new alert there.
Hey, Pamela?
Yes?
Quick request from the audience. Is there a way to go back to full screen mode again or zoom in on the screen? Be F11 and a zoom in with control plus mouse scroller?
Ah, so you could actually see?
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt.
No, you're good. That would be helpful to be able to see a little bit more of the screen. So yes, you can. You can actually have different views here. So you can see that we had an alert here, and you can compare this to the different states from the different devices to see what's going on and what triggered it, which is really, really helpful. You can see if, you know, if let's say the oil pressure went down and it triggered that alert, which is really beneficial. And so you can correlate between these different devices of what caused that alert. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and move on to building your own time series insights environment just to move along. But you can see we can actually spend a lot of time digging into this and seeing the different states of why this was triggered based on, you know, maybe you can see right here, there's a drop into the sensor, which probably triggered this this actual fire alarm. And so it's definitely nice to be able to see all of that. All right, let's go ahead and dig into how you can get started. All right, so I have on Visual Studio Code an example simulated device. This simulated device has temperature and humidity. And so I'm going to show you real quick. I'm going to start up this app. and you can see the data that is being sent up to IoT Hub. So we have temperature and humidity, and this is the only messages that is being sent up. If you're interested in getting started and samples, we have tons of samples on GitHub, and then also at the end I'll show you how to get this access to this code. But really, it's a really kind of basic code where it's simulating temperature and humidity. All right, and the only thing I changed is that I added my device connection string. So let's go into the portal. All right, so I have created an IoT Hub already. If you are not familiar with how to create an IoT Hub, we deep dived into that into the other sessions, but I'm just going to quickly go over how to create one real quick. You can do that by going to Home and the Marketplace, or you can actually go ahead and hit Add. So I added an IoT Hub here. And in IoT Hub, you can actually see all your devices. So I'm going into IoT Hub. At the moment, I have a device here. I created, registered that device, and then all I did was take that primary connection string, which has a SAS token, and I put it into the code. And so just to get you caught up real quick, that's really what the code is showing, that connection string and sending data up. So I mentioned before, it's really easy to get started with time series insights. A couple ways you can get there is, one, you can type in time series insights. I bet when you go to your Azure portal, it's not the first thing that popped up because I use it a lot. That's why it's in my recent searches. But you can go home. You can create a new resource, and under IoT, you can actually just go ahead and click on time series insights. And you can also type in to search time series insights as well. So the environment name, go ahead and give a name to your time series insight. So I'm just going to say, we're in a workshop right now, and that looks good. We can create a new research group. I already have one created, but you can create a new one if you wanted to. And then you can choose a location. I'm just going to go ahead and say West Coast because that is where I'm at the moment. And then you can choose a couple different pricing tiers. You can pay as you go. You could do S1, which is a standard tier. S2 is, the second standard tier. And if you want more information, there is that pricing page, which I find really helpful. That gives you a little bit more information on, okay, so for storage, what are my needs? How do I think of pricing, especially if I'm going to use code storage? It's based on block pricing. And then what do you get in these different tiers? So I'm going to go ahead, move on to the next section. And so I'm going to go ahead and name my event source. So I'm just going to say time series insights, and I hope that you're going to name them a lot better than what I'm naming them right now. But just for the sake of moving this along, I'm going to select assisting hub, which is going to be my example 3, and then policy. Normally, I'm just going to choose, the IoT Hub owner. It really depends on what you're using it for, but by default, you're most likely going to select the IoT Hub owner. And now this part is what's really important. When you're using time series insights, especially in that graphic that I was showing you before, the diagram like this one, where you have your data going to Azure Stream Analytics and maybe a different part of your solution and then time series insights, you will want to create a new consumer group. This is really important because if you don't create that consumer group, one, it probably wouldn't even let you do it, but if you did not create it, it's a requirement because consumer groups is pretty much a way to view, it's a view of an entire IoT hub or event hub. So consumer groups enable you to have multiple consuming applications, each to have a separate view of the event stream. So you can see why it's important, especially if you have, your data going, if you're using Stream Analytics as part of your solution, you want to be able to have a consumer group. So I'm just going to go ahead, I'm going to create a new one. I'm just going to call it Time Series Insights Consumer Group, and you're going to see that you need to add it because if you just did this and you did, I'm going to show you real quick, it's going to keep giving you, it's not going to let you actually create. It's going to keep you going back and forth and you're going to wonder what's going on. Make sure you actually hit the add button. I've seen that so many times. So definitely make sure you do that. And then you can create, review and create. Everything looks good. So I'm going to go ahead, move forward on there. And why this is deploying, I'm going to go back to our IoT hub. Which is that example 3. And I just want to showcase that that data is coming in. So you can see that I was running it this morning, I stopped, and then I just started it back up for that particular device. And I have one device that's on at this moment that's being used. So I just want you to know that this is the same IoT hub and that we have it connected to the time series insights. And deployment is in process and succeeded. So I'm just gonna go here. So what you can do is, if you can't find your time series insights, you can just hit search. I could have gone in that view as well, but I'm gonna go ahead, look here. And now, if you want to actually go to your environment, there's a couple ways you can do that. One, you can actually hit this button, go to environment, but you can also go here as well. So we're going to go ahead, click this, and normally the first time you do that, it's going to ask you to sign in. I've already signed in with this dummy account. So you're going to see that we have this view, data starting to come in. Events are starting to come in. I'm going to want to look at my temperature. And I'm going to go ahead, add that. And I want to add humidity as well. So you can start seeing that data coming in. And you can also split by different states as well if you want. So you can see that the data is coming in and now we can view it and we can, change our dashboard and change the time that we see the dashboard. But you can see already that it took us probably less than 5 minutes, don't quote me on the time, to get started with time series insights when data is already coming on. And remember, you can bulk upload past data as well to get started. So that's time series insights. Let's go ahead and dig into Azure Stream Analytics. So we're going to go talking about stream processing part of this high-level IoT architecture. So why is it even important to unlock real-time insights? And the main reasons for that is because time in the name is crucial. Time to insights, super crucial, especially for IoT solution when you're doing remote monitoring. You know, if you have something go down, you need to be able to do something about that right away. And you can think of it as a couple different scenarios. You have two big ones. One is that human scenario where if you're able to get insights on a particular thing that, let's say, a machine on the production floor just went down, if you're able to get that right away, you can have alert sent to what maybe the service worker, who then goes and fixes it. The other scenario is maybe once that alert is sent, it kicks off an automation process where it can fix the machine or do some sort of process that makes sense for that particular scenario. So that's kind of two different ways to think about it. And then insights are perishable, meaning that window of opportunity for insights to be actionable, you know, sometimes it doesn't matter after a while because if you're on a manufacturing floor and you know, your fire alarm went off, you have a short amount of window to do something about that where it makes sense and you need to act on it fast. And so that's another reason why real-time insights is really important. And then being able to ask questions on data in motion. Maybe you can't wait for data to rest before running all of the calculations to actually understand what's going on with that data or data transformation. So why real-time analytics, which we're going to get to the heart of why stream analytics or Azure Stream Analytics. One, insights are perishable, that window of opportunity is limited, and stream analytics can help with that because it's real-time analytics. Time to insights is crucial because reducing that decision latency can unlock business value. And then also now you can query that data in motion. All right, so fully managed PaaS offering for real-time analytics. So this is all about stream analytics and the benefits for Azure Stream Analytics. So Azure Stream Analytics has a couple different benefits to it. One, starting off with, especially since a lot of people on the call right now are programmers or developers, the tools that are supported for Azure Stream Analytics are amazing. So you can have simple SQL language, extensibility with JavaScript and C#. There's built-in analytics functions. There's support for Azure Portal, VS Code, Visual Studio, PowerShell, REST APIs. You might not know, but Visual Studio actually has an extension for Azure Stream Analytics, which is super handy, especially if you're using it in IoT solutions. So whenever you go to Visual Studio Code, you can go ahead, search for Azure Stream Analytics extension, and you can see all of the different support that you can get from it. Granted, this is in preview, but it's been in preview for a while now. And so you can see you can manage, author your jobs, you can test them locally, you compile and submit a job, you actually get the explore option as well. So there's a lot of benefits for using the extension in VS Code for Azure Stream Analytics. And then also in Visual Studio, there is support for Azure Stream Analytics too. So for example, if you have a job that needs to read streaming data from Azure IoT Hub device, you can define that job to calculate average temperature when it's over, let's say, 27 degrees, and then write the resulting output events to a new file in blob storage. You can do that all through your preferred IDE, and then best-in-class debugging tools, and that comes with Visual Studio and Visual Studio Code as well. Next, Azure Stream Analytics, you know, it's really easy to use. It's real-time analytics service that's designed for mission-critical workloads, and those workloads can either be in the cloud and they can also be on the edge. Next week, we'll actually dig into building Azure Stream Analytics on the edge. So I'll show you how to do that. We'll deep dive into that and how easy it is to actually have the power of stream analytics and stream processing actually on the edge, which is really great if, let's say, you need extended offline capabilities or you have gateway devices that you need more stream processing on the edge. And then it can also work with Azure Stack as well if you're using Azure Stack. And the next thing with Azure Stream Analytics is serverless, so low TCO, so you use fully managed job service, no clusters to manage, no VMs to provision. You pay as you go. You can pay by the minute, start, and you can stop on demand, which is really nice. So when you're in that Azure portal, there's a stop button, there's a start button. You can easily just click on it and just run it when you need to run it. And then, of course, you can scale up and scale out, which is really, really beneficial. And then easy to get started. So it's native zero code integration with 15 Azure services. So under 5 minutes to solution, which is really nice, especially if you're doing anomaly detection, which Azure Stream Analytics has support for, built-in anomaly detection capabilities, to be able to not sit there and spend a really long time on figuring out anomaly detection. Azure Stream Analytics does that pretty quickly. And then it's enterprise grade, so you know it's available in 26 regions worldwide. You know, is 99.9 job level SLA, which is really important if you need your solution to run and need real-time insights, you know that it's going to continue running. So these are kind of the key offerings when it comes to stream analytics. So let's dig into a little bit more of what it is and how it plays with other products and services. So first, you're going to ingest. So you can either ingest with IoT Hub or Event Hubs. For IoT solutions, you're going to want to ingest with IoT Hub. And you know, in the past, I did comparisons with IoT Hub and Event Hubs and IoT solutions, but IoT Hub is really meant for IoT devices. But you can gather that information from IoT Hub, ingest that data, and then use for analyzing. You can use continuous streaming and real-time analytics with Azure Stream Analytics. So this is super useful, especially if you're using Stream Analytics to ingest the data from IoT Hub, and it's based on the SQL query language, so you can easily filter, sort, aggregate, and join data, streaming data over a period of time, which is really beneficial, and then deliver. So this last part, after you're done with your stream processing, you can do alerts and actions. You can do that either through Event Hubs, Service Bus, Azure Functions, and then also if you need dashboarding, you can actually use Power BI, which is really nice. And you could actually use time series insights dashboard as well. So to give an example for that, if let's say you have an IoT solution where you set up Azure Stream Analytics job that takes telemetry from IoT Hub of built-in Event Hub endpoint, as an endpoint, you can perform anomaly detection, and then the output the results to Event Hub. So you can use that, those events corresponding to those anomalies can be used in time series insights. So there is a way that if you want to showcase anomaly detection, you can showcase it in time series insights as well. Just wanted to highlight that because it's not on the slide, but there is a way that you can use time series insights as dashboarding and being able to visualize it. Then data warehousing, so Azure SimLabs Analytics. If you're not familiar with what that is, that was actually formerly SQL data warehouse. So if this is a new term for you, maybe you're familiar with SQL data warehouse. And then storage. So you can send as an output, you can send to, Azure Data Lake Gen 1, Gen 2, Cosmos DB, blob storage. Just depends on if you want warm or cold storage, or what is the right storage option for you. So some scenarios for Azure Stream Analytics. One is real-time fraud detection. I think this is a really strong case for why real-time insights is really important. You can imagine like if, for example, if a customer swipes a credit card at a terminal, the bank only has a few seconds to run a complex ML model to analyze tons of data points and decide whatever to mark a transaction as fraud. And so being able to do that quickly is really important, going back to that real-time analytics. And then predictive maintenance, call center analytics, IoT infrastructure, networking monitoring, customer behavior prediction, log analytics, real-time cross-sell offers, fleet monitoring, connected cars, which again, that's an IoT solution, real-time patient monitoring, smart grid, and real-time marketing. And you can see that some of these might not be IoT solutions, but the good thing with Azure Stream Analytics is that it spans a lot of different scenarios, including being able to work nicely for IoT solutions that needs real-time insights. So for the real-time processing, you could do simple event processing. So, if you want to do filter or you want to transform the data, enrich it, split, route it. Those are kind of examples of simple event processing. If you want to do event stream processing, you could integrate and you can also set rules as well. So more examples of a complex event processing, pattern detection, time windowing, joins, and correlations are some things to know about. So how Azure Stream Analytics is set up is that you have inputs. Inputs are the analytics. Azure Stream Analytics jobs can connect to one or many different data inputs. These inputs defines a connection to existing data source. So for example, some inputs could be Azure Event Hubs. It could be IoT Hub, which is a really popular endpoint as we're talking about IoT solutions. Azure Blob Storage is the other input. And what's nice is that not only can it support those different event sources, the inputs are referenced by name in the streaming SQL query that you write for each job. And in the query, you can actually join multiple endpoints to blend data, or you can even compare the streaming data with a lookup to a reference data and pass the results to outputs. And that's so being able to query, so you're actually able to explicitly stop and transform the input stream. And then the last part is output. So outputs is where you can store and save the results of the stream analytics job. By using the output data, you could do like further business analytics and data warehousing of your data. And so what's nice about this is you can also create these outputs using the Azure portal, the PowerShell, Visual Studio Code, through a REST API, and some examples of outputs could be SQL database, blob storage, event hubs, Power BI, Cosmos DB, Data Lake Storage Gen 1, even Gen 2. So there's a lot of options for outputs on where you're actually sending that results to. So here's an example. And this one is an example of how we're using anomaly detection feature within Azure Stream Analytics. And you can see that you have these different inputs and different outputs. So I have an input. The input is actually, if you recognize this icon, is IoT Hub. So we're actually inputting the data from IoT Hub. We're running this query, which is based for anomaly detection. And then the output, we're outputting that into a Power BI. You might not know it's Power BI, but it's what I named my Power BI. So this is just an example of an Azure Stream Analytics query. So the query language itself, so what's nice about Azure Stream Analytics, it offers that SQL query language for performing these transformations over streams of events. And this is super powerful, and it tries to be really straightforward, especially if you have worked with SQL in the past. You can get started pretty quickly. So you have filters, so wheres, projections, you can select time window functions and property-based integrates, so you can group by, and then time shift joins, so specifically time bounds within which adjoining events can occur, and then the combinations of everything that I just mentioned. So there is on the Azure documentation site a deep dive into each one of these different parts of the language, the query language. So for example, if you want to know what's the difference between tumbling window versus sliding window, the docs have that, and it's really beneficial to be able to see all of that. All right, we're going to jump into message routing. And those, as a reminder, if you really want to see Azure Stream Analytics in action on the edge, I'll be covering that in the next workshop part. All right, so IoT Hub message routing. What's nice about IoT Hub is that it has built-in message routing. And so this is super useful. We've had this for, I would probably say, last 2 years. Again, don't quote me on that, but we've had it for a while. So message routing, really, it enables you to send messages from your device to cloud services, which is beneficial if you want to automate, scale, and other scenarios for message routing is sending that device telemetry messages as well as events, namely device lifecycle events, device twin change events to built-in endpoints or custom endpoints. Another benefit of message routing is filtering data before you route it to actual endpoints. So that could be really helpful, especially if you're really focusing on kind of applying rich queries. So it allows you to query on the message properties and the message body, as well as the device twins, tags, and device twin properties. So that's super useful, especially if you really want advanced querying, being able to filter out that data before routing it to other endpoints. So the built-in endpoints, there's a couple different options that you have. So you can route it directly to, let's say, Azure, like Azure storage. So if you wanted to do, let's say, blob storage, or maybe even Azure Data Lakes storage Gen 2, you can do that through message routing. You can also go to Event Hub, so you can route all of your data to a custom endpoint, to a type of Event Hub. One thing you need to consider when you route device to cloud telemetry messages using these built-in endpoints, there is going to be a slight increase to the end-to-end latency after creating the first route. So I always like to mention this just because, especially if every second counts, it's something to think of. And even though I mentioned every second counts, really in most cases the latency is only increased by 500 milliseconds. So it's not that much, but if you are in an IoT solution where that 500 milliseconds does really count, consider that when you're using the message routing, and consider a different way for your solution. And then what's also really nice about the message routing, so when you're doing these different endpoints, you can have a fallback route. So let's say you're sending all these messages that don't satisfy a query condition on any of the existing routes to the built-in event hubs. Maybe that's if the message routing is turned on, you can enable this fallback route capability. So once a route is created, the data actually stops flowing to the built-in endpoint unless the route is created to that endpoint. If there's no routes to that built-in endpoint, the fallback route is enabled, and only messages that didn't match any query conditions on routes will actually be sent to that built-in endpoint. And then also, if all of your existing routes are deleted, that fallback route must be enabled to receive all of the data at the built-in endpoint. So this is super useful to have that fallback route. One thing I also want to mention, a question that I hear a lot is the mention of the latency, which I talked about a couple seconds ago, but does that mean every single route that you do, a custom route that you do for message routing, adds 500 milliseconds? And no, it doesn't. Normally it's just after that first route. So if you keep adding other routes, it's not going to mean that you're going to keep adding this in a bigger latency. So I do want to do that call out. And if you're looking into where you can actually go into the portal for that IoT messaging routing, you can actually, let me go to the IoT hub. Let me go to example 2. Message routing, since it's built-in feature of IoT Hub, you do in your Blade have a section for message routing, and this is where you can actually have your routes, your custom endpoints, and one thing I didn't talk about was the enrichment messages. This is just a nice way to be able to kind of set be able to send enhance message. So these are really nice. You can have up to 10 per IoT hub. If you want more information about that, I'll show you a link to be able to learn more about enrichment messages. So you can add a route. So I can select these different endpoints, as I mentioned before. Here's a couple different ones you can select. So you can either add that endpoint. you go ahead and click here. If I wanted to add storage, I could make my endpoint name, select my Azure storage container, and go ahead and create. And that could be a route. And then you can also disable the fallback route that I talked about earlier. And so you can have up to 100 of these routes, which is really nice if you would, if you have a really complex IoT solution. Most solutions probably are not going to use up to 100 routes, but it's nice to be able to sit there and say, all right, these messages are going to go to, this storage, and maybe I need something to go to event hubs, or even you can have your custom endpoint as well. So there's so many different options here for your particular IoT solution. All right, event grid integration. So event grid integration is really nice. What makes it nice is that you can easily be able to create events where you can have these different topics and event description, but easily connect to your other business services you're already using. So kind of an example of how you can use Azure IoT integration with Azure Event Grid. You can send event notification to other services, which can trigger downstream processes. A really simple one would be you have an IoT hub, and let's say you add a device in IoT hub, and you can create a logic app, and that logic app could be triggered by event where you can create a device, and maybe your logic app, once that event has happened, maybe sends an email out to one of the service workers and says, hey, an event has, a new device has been added to this IoT hub. And if you haven't worked with logic apps before, it's really handy. You can easily be able to send emails. You can even structure how you want the emails to look like. You can send a tweet. I don't think that's as useful, being able to send a tweet on if your machine went down. But there's definitely many different ways that you can integrate with your already services you're using. So that's just a great example of how to use that event grid integration. If you're curious on where that is in the portal, so if you go to your IoT hub, events is right here. And so it's right up at top, and it tells you how to get started, how you can send those event notifications to those other services. You could see logic apps is what I talked about before, which is really nice, especially if you want to send emails out. You can also do Azure Functions, webhooks, storage queues, event hubs, and many other options as well. And for event description, you can go ahead and create a name, but I wanted to highlight here is that you do have different options. I did mention if you created a device, what happens, how you can have that event notification, but you can also, if it's deleted, connected, disconnected. The one I think is probably the biggest one that you might want to look into is device telemetry. And that one's a really handy one, especially if you're, let's say your device gets to a certain, maybe you have a temperature, it gets to a certain temperature, you're able to filter out as well, which is a nice feature. So you can add a filter with keywords or operator and the value that you want to send out this actual event. So those are your 5 options when it comes to using the event grid integration with IoT Hub. All right, so how can you get started and go through these examples that I went through today? First, you can check out Microsoft Learn. Microsoft Learn is super useful if you are wanting online training. So I'm a big fan of it. So if you go to the vanity link that I provided here, I'm actually just going to click on it. I have it up right now. So Microsoft Learn is set up in a couple different ways. One is you can have learning paths, or you can just see the modules. So learning paths are a collection of modules, and modules, just think of them as tutorials. So today, if you wanted to get started with Azure Stream Analytics, there is a really nice online tutorial where you can identify anomalies by routing the data via IoT Hub and using the built-in machine learning model and Azure Stream Analytics. And so this one's definitely a great one if you're new to Azure Stream Analytics and to IoT solutions to check out, because it'll tell you how to get started there. And then at the end, how you can actually visualize that with Power BI. If you're interested in the time series insights one, we do have one for time series insights. This one's really nice to actually kind of give you a deep dive. I showed a little bit of time series insights on how to get it started and how you can actually see, you know, different devices, different sensors, different states, all in one view, and how you can correlate and have different time views of those. But I recommend checking this out because this will really give you a deep dive on how you can get started and actually make queries to gain insights, because that's one thing we did not do, was actually set those different queries. And then you could check out the rest of the workshop series. Join me next week when we go in Azure IoT Edge. Edge is one of my favorite topics, so it's going to definitely be a fun one where, you know, we can really have fun with deploying AI models on the edge, and also how to do stream processing on the edge as well. And then I always get the question of, what if I just want to play with hardware and see a full end-to-end solution? So there is a really great workshop that was built, and it's all about real-time asset tracking. And so it's built using this MX chip. If you haven't seen it before, the MX chip is a really handy device. We actually built this in partnership with MX, and the reason why was because we would run all of these workshops, and my background is hardware engineering, and I got excited working with hardware, but it was also very frustrating for a lot of the folks who were focused on the cloud side. So we really wanted a device where you're really focused on the cloud side, but you can actually have your hands on a device where the sensors are already built on it. There's a screen on there. There's a bunch of fun projects. You can learn about working with IoT Hub, device provisioning service, seeing that data and time series insights, and have a full learning path and training on this. So, and be affordable as well. And so it has a nice Wi-Fi chip on there and built-in sensors. And so there's this workshop on GitHub right now that I really recommend checking out. And even if you don't have an MX chip, recommend checking out this end-to-end IoT solution, because it's really going to help you understand, all right, so she just talked about IoT Hub, and then she talked about device provisioning service, and then time series insights and Azure Stream Analytics, but how's it all fit into an end-to-end solution? So this will step-by-step go through a solution with you. There's a full PowerPoint deck that walks through the scenario, or you could just go on the GitHub page, and the code, everything's open source and it's really easy to follow. It's been one of my favorite workshops for folks to check out. And if you're scrambling to look at these links, don't worry. We can provide this deck to you after the event. All right, learn how to get started with IoT. So we do have a developer guide. The developer guide is really meant for folks where they are just starting to understand our products and services. I recommend starting there before anywhere, just to kind of understand as a developer point of view and building an IoT solution, what are kind of the building blocks and what are the different elements? And even if you're not a developer, it's still pretty useful. We talked about the Microsoft Learning Paths. One more shout out on this is that you don't need an Azure subscription to do most of the tutorials on MS Learn because it's the sandbox environment. Keep in mind though, if you wanted to use your own Azure subscription, you can definitely use it and still have that same experience because some people prefer the sandbox experience because then they don't have to use their Azure subscription. Keep in mind those sandbox experience lasts for 2 hours. So, but a lot of those tutorials are, 30 to 60 minutes long. So it's you should have plenty of time. And then the reference architecture guide, I went over that slide about the different subsystems of an architecture of a basic IoT solution. But when you actually go to the site, it's super useful. And we are in the process of updating this, but I still find this really useful because it really gives you the core subsystems. So if you look at the 70-page doc and you looked at the time that it was built last year, don't worry, we are updating that, but the subsystems are still the same. They're still the core subsystems, and it has a lot of great insights on building an IoT solution about high availability, what to think about security, disaster recovery, all of those different things that it's still important to this day. And then got 1 more minute, which is perfect timing. So we have the IoT show. We have the big build event that's coming up soon. I hope you join us for the build event. We're going to be releasing a bunch of episodes. I think we're up to 10 episodes of IoT show for build. That's going to happen, on May 19th or the week of May 19th. And so we're going to be talking about all of the new announcements. We're also going to be having a deep dive series. So every Monday in June and July, we're going to deep dive into Azure RTOS, time series insights. I gave you really high level of time series insights today, but we're going to bring in the time series insights team, and we're going to really dig into that digital twins. And a bunch of other new products and services that are being announced at Build. So definitely consider checking out IoT Show if you're interested in continuous learning. And then the tech community, if you ever want to reach out to me and ask a question or any of our fellow engineers, come join us in the IoT tech community and also share your projects. We really want to see what everyone's working on. So I want to thank everyone for joining today, and there's a lot of products and services in this space. So letting me just showcase a few that is super helpful in IoT solutions. I really appreciate it. So looking forward to seeing folks for the last part. Thank you.